worth more than $20 billion. Mixed messages. One of the top US intel chiefs contradicts President Trump on the progress being made with North Korea, saying Kim Jong-un is highly unlikely to give up his nuclear weapons. Plus, terrible timing. There are fears foot and mouth disease could be on the move across South Korea's farms. This as millions of Koreans prepare to hit the road for the Lunar New Year holiday. Let's start with some economic news this morning. South Korea's finance minister says exports for January are expected to decline on year, this after a fall in December as well. Speaking at an economic vitality meeting on Wednesday, Hong Nam-gi said finding measures to boost exports is important amid slowing global growth and uncertainty over the US-China trade spat. He said the government will come up with specific measures to support overseas plant projects, content and agricultural exports by February. Data by the Korea Customs Service shows between January 1st and the 20th, exports dropped more than 14% on year. Now to more concerning economic news. South Korean firms' business sentiment for January has fallen to its lowest level since March 2016 due to sluggish manufacturing sector activity, really. The Bank of Korea says the business survey index dropped 3 points on month to 69 in January, and a reading below 100 means there are more pessimists than optimists about future business conditions. The central bank said worsening business sentiment in machinery and semiconductors drove down the manufacturing BSI, which fell 4 points on month to 67 in January. That's the lowest level in that sector for almost 10 years. Non-manufacturing BSI fell 2 points on month to 71. The South Korean government has unveiled new deregulation measures aimed at stimulating economic growth here in the country. It normally checks to see whether and how big projects will impact the South Korean economy. However, under an agreement reached on Tuesday, around 24 large-scale projects will be exempt from such a process. Officials hope the move will help to achieve balanced regional development and revitalize regional economies in the process as well. Che Xiang reports.
Economic viability tests are conducted on projects that get more than about $26 million in government funds. But for these, the government will waive the assessments in the interest of helping less developed regions of the country catch up. The projects are focused on two things: improving traffic and logistics networks across the country and nurturing regional industries. All 23 of them together will cost about $21 billion. Nearly half of the spending is for high-speed railway and highway construction to improve traffic and logistics networks across the country. That includes building new railways between the Seoul metropolitan area and the southeastern Gyeongsang-do provinces. Another high-speed railway will bridge northeastern Gangwon-do province and the southwestern Jeollado provinces. There will also be a railway built along the east coast connecting Gangwon-do province and Gyeongsangbuk-do province. Another chunk of expenses will go to projects specific to industries in each region. The city of Gwangju will host complexes for the AI industry. The surrounding Jeollado provinces will get a new fish farm dedicated to exports. To the east, the city of Ulsan will have a new public hospital for serious illnesses, and Jeju-do will modernize its sewage facilities. Announcing these plans, the government admitted that achieving balanced regional development and revitalizing regional economies will require cooperation.
It's highly important that we have not only the efforts of regional municipalities, but also the interests of the people.
The 23 projects will be carried out through 2029. Che Xiang, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea has finished drawing up a nautical chart of the Hangang River estuary, and the two Koreas are meeting this morning at the border village of Panmunjom to share their views on the sea map. The final version comes some 50 days after the two Koreas conducted a joint inspection of the mouth of the river, which lasted for a little over a month at the end of 2018. The hydrographic survey conducted by 20 officials from both Koreas was part of the Inter-Korean Comprehensive Military Agreement signed back in September of last year to eventually allow private ships access to the waterway. Now, with the radar lock-on dispute between South Korea and Japan still raging on, a South Korean foreign ministry official in charge of US affairs is going to be visiting Japan on Wednesday to tour some UN-flagged military bases where he could hold talks with Japanese officials while he's there. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Seoul's foreign ministry says Kim Tae-jin, the Director General of the ministry's North American Affairs Bureau, is scheduled to travel to Japan on Wednesday for a two-day trip, accompanied by other ministry officials.
Kim Tae-jin will visit UN-flagged bases in Japan from January 30th to the 31st after receiving an invitation from the UN. He's expected to meet with officials from US Forces Japan.
The visit will provide Kim and his delegation a chance to meet with their Japanese counterparts, as the two countries have been embroiled in a radar dispute involving a Japanese maritime patrol jet and a South Korean naval destroyer in December. Watchers say it's possible Washington will play a mediating role between its regional allies to resolve the standoff, as there could be a trilateral session joined by a representative from the U.S. Forces Japan. This comes as the U.S. ambassador to South Korea, Harry Harris, had a series of meetings with South Korea's defense and foreign ministers in Seoul on Monday, in which they covered recent issues. Japan's Defense Minister Takeshi Iwaya, speaking to Japanese broadcaster NHK on Tuesday, called for a need to cool tensions, adding that a meeting with his South Korean counterpart could happen soon. Seoul-Tokyo relations have deteriorated to levels not seen in years over the radar dispute. It has been compounded by the ongoing tensions over Japan's wartime atrocities against Korea, especially Tokyo's use of forced labor and its military sexual enslavement of Korean women during World War II. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The head of South Korea's intel agency says North Korea and the US will likely begin preparing a joint statement to be issued following the second summit between their leaders that is scheduled for late next month. Director of the National Intelligence Service, Seo Hoon, says the two sides will start coordinating specific agenda items to draft a joint declaration. This is the first time a South Korean official has officially mentioned the possibility of a new joint declaration between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and President Trump. Breaking ranks with his boss in the White House, the US Director of National Intelligence has cast doubt over North Korea's willingness to denuclearize. Testifying before the US Senate Intelligence Committee on Tuesday, Dan Coats said North Korea will seek to retain its WMD capabilities, and it's unlikely to completely give up its nuclear weapons and production capabilities. He added Kim Jong-un views nuclear weapons as critical to his regime's survival. Coats also said US intel agencies are observing activity that's inconsistent with full denuclearization. His comments run counter to President Trump's view that North Korea no longer poses a nuclear threat to the US. A suspected outbreak of foot-and-mouth disease has been confirmed for the second time in as many days. The new case was discovered in the city of Ansong last night, a day after the government confirmed a type O variant of the disease in that city. The second farm is located only around 11 kilometers away from the first. The Ministry of Agriculture said if there's another confirmed case, it would take further steps to keep the disease from spreading to other regions. At the moment, a 24-hour lockdown is on all livestock farms within 3 kilometres of the affected farms. Some 440,000 cows in Ansong, along with nearly 1.4 million cows and pigs in neighbouring cities and towns, will receive vaccinations. The weekly Wednesday rally near the Japanese embassy in South Korea will be held as usual in Seoul today, despite the recent passing of Kim Bok-dong, a former comfort woman and well-known activist for the victims. The rally, which marks its 27th anniversary this year, calls for Tokyo's official apology and due compensation to the Korean victims of its wartime sexual enslavement of them. The Korean Council for Justice and Remembrance for the Issues of Military Sexual Slavery by Japan says the participants will take a moment to cherish the memory of Kim and all the other victims who have died recently. Now let's switch gears to a happier note now, and it's fair to say it doesn't have the same glitz and glamour as its Las Vegas counterpart, but it's still a hive of fun and activity nonetheless. South Korean firms are holding their own version of the Consumer Electronics Show, CES. It's happening this week right here in Seoul. Our Won Jung-hwan was lucky enough to go and check it out and files this report.
Some 40 Korean companies that took part in the recent Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas launched their own version of the show on Tuesday for consumers here at home for 3 days. At Seoul's Dongdaemun Design Plaza, they showed off their latest devices, almost all of them featuring artificial intelligence, and some of the standouts including robots, smart homes, and smart cars. LG Electronics, which won a total of 132 awards at CES, unveiled the world's first production-ready TV that you can roll up, the first time it's brought out the production on home soil. The 65-inch OLED screen disappears into a long box that houses its embedded speakers. For visitors seeing it with their own eyes, it clearly made an impression.
This is really new to me. I never imagined an electronic device that can be folded or rolled up. I'm a painter and I always have to carry a big laptop with me, so I look forward to someday having a laptop with this technology.
There was also a concept car for Samsung Electronics featuring what the company calls a digital cockpit system, which it introduced at CES. The system offers IoT solutions that improve a car's connectivity, safety, and convenience. And Samsung expects the platform to be available in cars by around 2021.
I feel like I'm living in the future. You can see where people are without using the side mirrors. And if you put your mobile phone in the case in the front, your car's own screen will display what's on your phone.
The digital cockpit also supports car-to-home interactions, allowing drivers to check what's inside their fridge or to just start up the washing machine, basically everything while sitting at the driver's seat. The event also featured a number of local startups, anticipating developments that could put Korea at the head of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to Jung-hwan's report there, and it looks like he had a great time, President Moon Jae-in also swung by the Dongdaemun Design Plaza on Tuesday to check out the electronics and tech show for himself. He encouraged the attendees and the companies displaying their products there, saying that they were leading South Korea's journey to become a major player in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Hwang Ho-jun reports.
President Moon Jae-in on the 2019 Consumer Electronics Show that took place in Las Vegas earlier this month said it was a moment that South Korea displayed to the world its advanced innovation in electronics and in the IT sector, a moment to be proud of.
4차 산업혁명 시대에서도 우리의 ICT 산업이 세계 시장을 선도할 수 있겠다는 그런 자신감을 보여준 일이었습니다. 혁신 한국의 저력 그리고 또 우수성을 이렇게 증명해 준 우리 기업인 여러분들께 축하와 감사 인사를 드립니다.
The president's remarks were made during a special kickoff ceremony of the Korea Electronics IT Industry Convergence Exhibition, a 3-day showcase of products that were initially introduced during the Las Vegas CES. The attendees included government officials, business leaders, college students, and power bloggers. Moon congratulated the nation's companies that won 71 CES Innovation Awards, highlighting how 6 of the 71 awards were given to Korean startups and that small and medium-sized businesses were also recognized at the global event. President Moon said through such accomplishment, Korea has proved its strength and excellence and that the nation's ICT business can take the lead in the global market in the upcoming 4th Industrial Revolution. President Moon expressed his gratitude for the companies holding a domestic exhibition to showcase their products so that the public can witness the nation's innovation without having to travel to Las Vegas. After a speech, President Moon held a closed-door discussion session with business leaders on global trends of ICT innovation and ways to revitalize Korea's manufacturing industry. The meeting was then followed by a tour where President Moon got to have a hands-on experience with about 10 products that were initially released in CES 2019, including but not limited to K-pop dance games using motion sensors, VR simulator robots, IoT-based safety protection suits, and state-of-the-art televisions. Hong Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Now, Tuesday was an important day here in South Korea as it marked 1 year since a female prosecutor publicly accused a powerful male figure of sexually harassing her, triggering the MeToo movement in South Korea as well. To mark the day, a discussion on gender issues and sex crimes was held at the National Assembly in Seoul. Yoon Jung-min with the details.
To commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the MeToo movement in Korean society, a roundtable talk was held at the National Assembly on Tuesday to discuss how society has changed and where to go next. Lawmakers and figures from culture, sports, and other fields attended, including female prosecutors Ho Ji-hyun, whose revelations of sexual harassment by a senior official at the Justice Ministry triggered the MeToo movement in the country last January.
I believe sexual crimes are not a personal issue, but a collective issue, and it's a sort of a Holocaust committed on women and the weak. The MeToo movement is not about something special. It's about declaring that we wouldn't stay silent anymore, and that we urge society to punish perpetrators properly and protect victims properly.
Tuesday marks 1 year since Seoul raised accusations against senior official An Tae-geun in front of the media. Last week, An was sentenced to 2 years in prison. The accusation last year sent a shockwave through Korean society, spreading from politics to culture, education, and sports, with a series of allegations following throughout the year. A political heavyweight stepped down, and a renowned filmmaker and a famous poet were also disgraced due to these accusations. Recently, several former and current elite sport coaches were accused of similar acts. Such a move did bring some change. Punishments became stricter and more laws were passed, but the panel said the mindset of the public needs to change and pointed out that society is still too lenient on the perpetrators and neglects the victims.
The public tends to focus more on the victims rather than the perpetrators. Also, there's the possibility of revenge, like a criminal ring. We try to hear voices from victims, but sometimes that's not easy. We hope the government will do more to help them.
The MeToo movement has unleashed a greater discussion of gender issues in Korean society over the past year. The roundtable talks aim to bring a better, healthier society free from the kinds of violations that came to light during the movement. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Now, it's not often that we start with weather for this segment, but today we are, because extreme cold and record low temperatures are sweeping through parts of the United States, especially the Midwest, and this is affecting tens of millions of people. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Adam. So Adam, we are having quite surprisingly, and for once, a rather mild winter here in South Korea, but it's literally the polar opposite, if you don't mind the pun, in the United States.
Yes, that's right, Mark. Weather authorities are warning this cold wave could be life-threatening, and there are reports that it has claimed a few lives already, though nothing has been confirmed yet. The brutal chill was caused by the polar vortex, a mass freezing air that normally spins around the North Pole but has made its way down south into the United States. The Midwest will be the hardest hit, as you said, experiencing temperatures not seen in a quarter century. The Chicago area and northern Illinois are forecast to see the mercury dip to almost minus 50 degrees Celsius, temperatures usually found in the Arctic Circle. The mercury in other areas will hover around minus 20. Bone-freezing wind chills will be accompanied by heavy snow with as much as 60 centimeters expected in places like Wisconsin. Schools in several cities have been closed and hundreds of flights have also been cancelled. People are being advised to stay indoors as those outside in the intense cold could experience frostbite within minutes. Dozens of warming centres have also been set up. Temperatures were expected to be at their coldest on Wednesday. In other news, while trade negotiations between the United States and China are scheduled to take place in Washington on Wednesday, the U.S. has slammed China's telecoms giant Huawei with 13 criminal counts. Unsurprisingly, Beijing has reacted furiously, insisting the move is politically motivated. Kim Yo-sun reports.
The U.S. has announced sweeping charges against China's Huawei and its chief financial officer Meng Wanzhou ahead of crunch trade negotiations between Washington and Beijing to end their prolonged trade war. Washington hammered the Chinese telecommunications company with 13 criminal counts, including bank and wire fraud, as well as trying to steal trade secrets from its German rival T-Mobile. The U.S. Justice Department accuses Huawei of violating U.S. sanctions against Iran by doing business with Tehran through a subsidiary it tried to hide.
There are additional troubling allegations in the indictment as well, including that Huawei lied to the federal government and attempted to obstruct justice by concealing and destroying evidence and by moving potential government witnesses back to China.
China strongly opposed the move, urging Washington to stop suppressing Chinese companies.
It's been some time since the U.S. started to use its state power to smear and suppress certain Chinese enterprises in an attempt to throttle their legitimate operations. Their intentions are strongly political and manipulative.
Beijing's industry ministry also insists the Huawei indictments are unfair and immoral.
Just as the foreign ministry said, with no evidence, they're using their state power to discredit and attack designated companies. This sort of behavior is unfair and immoral.
Amid the ongoing tensions, China's trade delegation led by Vice Premier Liu He is now in Washington for high-level trade talks, beginning Wednesday local time. Many are concerned the Huawei indictments could complicate the trade talks, but U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin is trying to separate the Huawei case with the trade talks, saying he expects to see significant progress this week. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
British lawmakers have voted against a proposal to delay Brexit in order to prevent the UK crashing out of the EU without a deal. The amendment is not legally binding for the UK government, but makes it more politically difficult for Prime Minister Theresa May to pursue a hard Brexit. MPs also voted to reopen Brexit talks with Brussels and renegotiate the terms of the contentious Irish border. The so-called backstop issue is an insurance policy to prevent the return of a hard Irish border, a provision despised by many Brexiteers who fear it could tie the UK to EU customs rules permanently. The EU, however, said it will not reopen discussions nor change the terms of the deal reached last November. Now, with only a couple of months left until Britain leaves the bloc, May is under increasing pressure to find a deal that will satisfy both Brussels and the British Parliament.
Good morning. It's going to feel more like early March today. By the afternoon, Seoul and Chuncheon will get up to 8 degrees Celsius this afternoon, and partly sunny skies will get cloudier as the day goes on, with Jeju will likely to see rain starting tonight. And those wet clouds could drop rain or snow over the southern and northeastern parts of the country. But the capital area will not be affected this time. Southern provinces and Gangwon province will see 5 to 10 millimeters of showers or snow. But today will be bearable under cloudy skies, while stagnant airflow will increase the concentration of domestic air pollutants, and more dust will blow in tonight from outside of the country. So western regions will likely to see bad levels of pollution for most parts of the day, so be sure to check the dust levels before heading out. Wet clouds and colder air will wash away the dust by tomorrow though, and we'll experience a small drop in temperatures over the next few days with nationwide rain in the forecast on Sunday. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for news right now. Stay tuned to us here on Arirang TV, though. Plenty more coming up, including our next newscast at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
The arrest of the Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou is intensifying the diplomatic